Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Welcome back to our Instagram live series. I'm Rebecca, the CMO of GoStork. Hope you're all having a great day. We are so excited today to have someone from the fertility community who has been through a long infertility journey herself and has experienced firsthand the reality of how difficult that can be in so many ways, but specifically related to the topic today, how expensive that can be as well. So our special guest today, Devon, is the fertility finance coach, and while I'll let her tell you all about that, first I'll just say I think it's so impressive how she's turned her family building journey into a personal mission to help others overcome the financial obstacles that infertility entails. Hi Devon, so I'm just working on adding her now. Bear with me and get ready for helpful tips in just a minute. Hi everyone. Hi. How are you?
Hi. I know I told you that coaching is my strong suit and not technology, but I mean, really, how many things can go wrong? I'm so happy to finally be on with you.
I'm so happy too. I mean, Instagram Live isn't technology. I think it's just like weirdly confusing in itself and it changes all the time. So,
And it won't let you click. Like it just
Mhm.
shows you in the feed, the video, and it won't let you go to it. Doesn't matter. We're here now,
We're here now.
exactly the right time. I see Maida's already watching. Hi, Maida.
Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. It's so good to see you. It's like
You
kind of
too.
a dreary day here, and I was just thinking Devon's gonna bring like the
Oh,
sunshine and the great hair and just everything.
well, I don't know. I don't know about that. That's a little too much pressure. I'm going to bring you some dry shampoo in some pajama pants. That's what I'm going to bring you today.
Sounds good. Well, pajama pants are always welcome. Um, Hi, guys. Thank you all for joining. So let's just dive in, I think.
Yeah.
Welcome to everyone. I see more joining, so thank you. And just really quickly, for those who are new to us, GoStork is the first fertility marketplace where intended parents find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers. And our mission is really to bring transparency to the fertility industry and to help intended parents make much more informed decisions about their providers. And so through these lives, we love to help bring you insights and support from the experts, as well as those who have walked the path that many of you are just beginning. So in Devon, we have both, which is just another reason we're so excited to have you. Thanks again for
Yes.
coming.
I definitely check both of those boxes. I'm really excited to be here.
You have the infertility resume and your professional resume on your site, right? I like how you
Yeah.
define that. And so again, today's topic is all about ways to finance the very expensive fertility journey. And we thought who better to share their perspective than the fertility finance coach herself. Again, as we said, as well as somebody who has gone through what many intended parents are now experiencing in their lives. So it's also important for us at GoStork to support in this way, however we can. Just for example, we're entirely free to use, and we recently launched the ability to apply for fertility loans right from the homepage of our site. And we'll be doing more soon to support in this way, so look out for that. But aside from loans, there are so many ways that you may not even realize to help afford, pay for, save, budget for fertility treatments that Devon knows so much about. So with that, I'd love to dive right in and start with you and your story. So
Yes.
can you share your personal fertility journey, like a bit of what you learned along the way and what inspired your professional path in the industry from there?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to share.
Great.
So, I am Devon Baeza, the fertility finance coach, and I help women make, save, and manifest money for fertility treatment. It was definitely not the career that I set out for. You have to add in the
You
jazz
have to.
hands, the little
I have to
fingers.
remember to do that when I say this later in my
Every
questions.
time, even if it's just you editing it later, add the hands. I did not intend ever on this being my job. I'm like a lot of people that I've met along the way. Very type A, very career driven, goal oriented, and I got an academic scholarship to college, got a degree in finance, certificate of investments. I married a great guy. I started in my chosen career field and promoted quickly. And I really, looking back on it now, I just honestly felt like I was winning at life, right? Like, hooray, all of these things that I've put in all this work and time and money and effort into have all paid off. And I guess I just, at some level, kind of expected it to keep going that way. And infertility was the first thing that popped up that sort of stopped me in my tracks. It was the biggest obstacle financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, in my professional relationships, romantic relationships, family relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It really just did, I would say, just did a number on me. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that I had endometriosis from a young age. And I remember the doctors saying, if you do want kids, get started sooner than later. And we did do that. I honestly wasn't totally prepared when we first started trying. I just thought, just in case they're right.
Mm-hmm.
But you still don't ever expect it to be you. You
Mm-hmm.
know it happens
Yeah.
to other people, but it's never what you expect to happen in your life. And especially when you are used to making stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ladies that I meet, and it's like we're not allowed to brag on ourselves, and we're supposed to be humble and downplay our abilities. But behind the scenes,
Especially in
we're,
our professional lives. Yeah.
oh yes, oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
But behind the scenes, we're kind of like, yeah, I'm a boss at this. Like I am making stuff happen. Like this is the job I wanted. This is the promotion I wanted.
Yeah. Or
You
at
can't
least I'm working harder than everyone else. That is,
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. There's
for
this big
sure.
shift in like a hustle mentality, right? And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
women are embodying we are all things all the time. And so when it first started, when we tried and we couldn't get pregnant, it just felt like a challenge. It wasn't, I don't think I was emotionally connected to it yet. Then we went to see an RE, a reproductive endocrinologist, and I started learning all these new acronyms, and about IUIs, and we did Clomid first, which is the worst drug on the face of the planet. Then we went to the injectable IUIs. Then, fast forward, we're on our fourth IUI with the injectables. So now it's getting really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was like $800, a month. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
injecting into myself, and it worked. And we were just over the moon, so excited. And then it ended in a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the biggest initial shifts for me is I was became very connected to it. It wasn't just the time we were spending, the money we were spending. My life was starting to be consumed by it. And especially after that, it was all I thought about. It was
Mm-hmm.
all I cared about. It was all I wanted to talk about. It was beyond obsession. It was a full-time job. And this is the days of forums. There wasn't even, an Instagram or Facebook groups to go into, which might have been good. I don't think I needed more places to go and,
Mm-hmm.
consume myself with it.
Obsessed, yeah.
Yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
not, it wasn't a good place to be. It was a really dark place to be. And I was so sure the only thing that would make me feel better was getting pregnant again and maintaining a pregnancy and okay, at least now it's possible and now we can move forward and it's going to work. It's going to work next time. And it didn't, again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And two surgeries later, and some more bad news, we ended up at IVF. And so I remember sitting at the doctor's office and it was huge, huge, bigger than my first apartment. She had couches in there and she's this beautiful doctor and she had the biggest diamond ring I have ever seen in my life. And she's sitting there telling us IVF is the only option and it's going to be $20,000. And I'm looking at her sparkly ring thinking, the ring on your finger is worth more than $20,000. Like that might not seem like a lot of money to you, but we don't have it. You might as well have said 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Same
no
difference.
way. We
Mm-hmm.
were young-ish. We were in the beginning of our careers. We had student loan debt. We had car payments, and we had spent all of our extra money, all of our savings on the
Already.
treatment. Yeah, we already did it. So it's like you're
Mm-hmm.
starting at zero saying come up with this insane amount of money. I was like, we'd have to win the lottery. There's no way. And she's like, well, what if you apply for a loan? Like, we already have debt. I don't know that we would qualify, and even if we did, we're going to gamble with debt. Like, my degree's in finance, I can't handle this. I can't, like, that's not okay with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, what about asking your families for help? And I was like, girl, you don't know where we come from. Like, we don't, I wish I had a rich uncle. I had a kind of sort of rich uncle, but I wasn't the favorite. Nobody's offering to pay for this. And could not ask. And so we were driving home from the appointment, and I just felt so defeated. And it became very clear, there's so much going on, and so many moving parts, and so much, it's just a roller coaster of hope and grief every month. But it finally became clear, like, this is what is stopping us. Either we come up with the money to do this, or we are giving up on this dream. And there was no one else that could save us. There was no one to help us. And the choice was ours. And we were going to have to make it before we knew how it was going to happen. Was money going to be what stopped me from motherhood? And I couldn't stomach it. Anything else, I couldn't stomach the thought of money being what stopped me from motherhood. And so I told my husband, what I was thinking and feeling. I'm like, we got to figure it out. And he was like, okay, we're going to do whatever it takes. And I'm like, really though, whatever it takes. And he's like, okay, I'm down. And that started a journey of crazy ways to make money, crazy things to save money. Some things I recommend, some things I do not recommend, but it eventually did lead to us being able to pay cash for IVF, gamble our savings, our life savings, and ended up with our almost 8-year-old daughter. So it was eventually money well spent. Yeah, thank you.
And I imagine helping others has been so meaningful after what you went through, like helping others to, get through their own financial journey.
It's so tough. There's nobody to talk to about it. When we were actually doing IVF, it was not going well. We thought we would have 20 something eggs, multiple embryos, and I was in my 20s, and we just expected that part to go well, at least. And it didn't. I wasn't responding to medication. We only ended up with one embryo that didn't look good. But right before that, they said you could switch this to an IUI and recoup some of your costs, some of the money. Do you want to do that? And it was a very expensive decision to make. And it had to be made like that day, right? There's no time to sit around and think about this when your follicles are, you're growing and about to ovulate. And I called my husband. He was like, whatever you think, babe. I'm like, thanks for nothing. That's not helpful at all. Thanks for your support, but that's not actually helpful. My friends didn't know what I was talking about. My family had no idea. Like, they would wish me well, but they didn't know. I'm like telling them my follicle size numbers and what the maturity levels and blah, blah. They don't know. And I was like, God, I need somebody that I can call to make this decision. Somebody who understands the acronyms and who understands the financial implications and who understands what this means to me, like what this money symbolizes. This is my only hope. This is all I have left.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
And so since then you've created so much out of that experience. And so I'm again so sorry for what you went through, but you have a beautiful family now and you're helping so many others. So I think everything happens for a reason. Sorry for the cliche,
I
but
know. And I didn't want to hear it at the time. I remember being so upset hearing that at the time, and years later when you're out of the forest, you can't see the forest from the trees, but when you're out of it and you can look back, you can see the plan all along. And you can.
True, but so I'd love for you to tell us all about the Fertility Money Club and all about the 3 components: making, saving, and manifesting money. Just share some of the details and some of the tips that you help people get started with in each of these categories.
Yeah. So those are,
I know it's a big question, but
it is, but I'll break it down. Those are the sort of the 3 biggest pillars, right, of anything dealing with finance. But when you're talking about fertility finances, there's certain caveats and certain situations that come up that are very, very unique that nobody else in the finance world is talking about. And that the traditional financial advice doesn't always apply to people who are in the middle of fertility treatments. So I would say most people start with the saving money piece of it. They think, oh my gosh, we're spending all this money. Where am I going to get it from? I'm going to start cutting things out of my life. And so they might, get onto their husband about having lunch out at the office, or they might cut out their Starbucks run.
Hmm.
They start doing things to save money. And that can be and I do recommend that especially if you need to come up with a big amount of money in a short period of time, you're going to have to maximize each one of these areas. Long term, if you're looking at a year or more before you're going to actually undergo treatment, it's really hard to sustain
Hmm.
a crazy budget. It's kind of
Hmm.
like dieting. You can do it for only a short period of time, but it is not made to sustain for long periods of time. There's reasons psychologically, there's a whole area of psychology, spending psychology, the way we think about money and how we interact with it. But I relate it to dieting, which I can only do for a day. I can only
Right.
diet for a day because as soon as I tell myself I can't have something, that's all I want. That's all I want, right? That's what I'm thinking about and obsessing over. And so
Hmm.
it doesn't work long term. We always sabotage ourselves.
Similar
And
to exercise, like they say the best exercise plan is the one you'll do. Like it has to be something you enjoy
yes,
doing, or at least don't hate, or
right,
your regimen
right.
can't be something you hate.
No, or you
So,
won't do it. And that's the truth. It doesn't really, that's where some of your traditional finance advice, they'll miss the boat on that because they'll tell you what works numbers wise. Yes, this makes the most sense to do it this way, but it's irrelevant if you won't do it. It's irrelevant if you can't stick to it. Like it
hmm.
won't work, then it won't work. The diet
And
you won't do won't work.
and if life is stressful enough with your infertility journey, sometimes you just need those little things to feel better. So,
You need them. It's part of it and it's okay. So I don't recommend that people cut out everything they love. I really recommend people budgeting for date nights, for breaks, for that one thing that brings them joy. It
hmm.
might be altering it a little bit. It might be shopping for it at a different place, but we find ways to take what's fulfilling them and just do it in a way that supports their goals at the same time. So that's the biggest chunk of budgeting is figuring out what works for you, your family, your situation, your timeline. The next would be making money, which people go in a few different ways on. So they either sometimes think too small or they think too big. So can you go take your stuff, sell it at a garage sale? Yes. How many times can you do that? Unless you're a hoarder with like a house full of stuff, that's only going to maybe be a one-time thing. It's not going to, keep it's not the gift that keeps on giving.
Hmm.
People don't consider that the most powerful way to make money is the way you're already making money. So whatever you're doing to earn a paycheck, chances are it's a good bet to do more of that. That might mean overtime. That might mean that same job at another place that's going to pay you more. It might mean a promotion in the same field. It might mean consulting work that you're doing on the side, but you've already done all of the work it takes to get to whatever you're doing to make money in your life. It's much easier to just sort of expand on that. So you can't discount that. Sometimes people want to go totally left field. Well, maybe I'll just go back to school for this. It turns out being a social worker doesn't pay great at all, and I should have done this. And they go too far with making money in a long-term plan that makes sense. But when you have immediate needs and an actual biological clock ticking, you don't have the time for that. Now is
Hmm.
not the time to go get another degree to make more money in 4 years, maybe.
Hmm.
Now is how are we going to make more money now? And so there are obvious ways, and then there are not so obvious ways, and there are fun ways. And I really recommend people do a mix of those so that it seems fun to you. It feels fun to you. You get like momentum from it. You get wins from it. It makes you want to keep doing more and keep going. If you naturally have an aversion to money topics, to dealing with money, sometimes you don't even want to think, oh, I have to save money and I have to make more money. Like
Hmm.
it already feels icky in your body. You're not likely to move
Hmm.
forward and actually do it. So
What are some of those fun ways? I know you have like that PDF of I think like
yeah.
10 of them, but there's some like contests and
Yes.
competitions and sales and just some of those fun things.
I've done some weird things to make money. I would not recommend donating plasma. If anyone's looked into that and not tried it, I literally spent more money on my hospital bill than I made from donating plasma. Okay, so I don't recommend. Um, some some people are into donating more important things. I know people who have, depending on your underlying issues, have, donated their eggs in a share program. There's some unconventional things you can do. I personally already had the weight to lose. I made a bet on healthywage.com to lose, technically I think it was 35 pounds. I lost 50 pounds in my they prize, they call it, was like $1,000. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
this is perfect motivation to try new things, to lose this weight that I already wanted to. And it really
Get
was,
healthier.
yeah,
Hmm.
it was a really great motivation because it wasn't so much the money I was going to make. It was not, you have to bet your own money. You're betting on yourself. And I
Hmm.
couldn't stand the thought of losing my own money. Like I bet on myself and lost.
Hmm.
I couldn't stand it. So I was willing to do all this stuff that I would not normally do. Like I'm going to the gym 5 days a week. I'm, trying this, and this, and it did work. So you're 80% more likely to reach goals if you have a financial component to them. Sometimes you'll see
A
like The
good
Biggest
statistic.
Loser.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is so interesting. You'll see like Biggest Loser at workplaces, and you like, why is it working when you're in a group? And beyond accountability is a financial incentive. So that's a fun way to use it in your own journey, is that you can reward yourself, not always even with monetary things, but that reward system in your brain. Once we save up our first $1,000, we are, going to our favorite park at sunset, and we are toasting with this mocktail that I found on Pinterest. And like, you're finding like, how are we going to reward ourselves, for doing a good job? So there's things you can do that make you money quickly. That one took 6 months. There's things you could do, missingmoney.com, like that's actual money owed to you from states you've lived in that you might not know about. I love hearing
Hmm.
when people find money on there. Did you check that out? Did you go look?
I haven't gone to look for myself, but I
Okay, you got
should.
to go. Yes, go look. I
I
love
will.
hearing it. And then you start searching for all your relatives too, and you're like, ooh, who else do I
Who's not checking
know?
here?
Yes. I mean, you can't take their money, it's only theirs, but I'm like, charge a finder's fee. I found you $5,000, give me 5%. I don't know anyone who's done that yet, but that's an easy, fun one. It would take 5 seconds to do, right? To find some money that might already be owed to you from prior, like security deposits or paychecks you never picked up, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's just sitting in the state's treasury waiting for you. So there's a lot of side hustles nowadays. Be very careful is what I would say for
Hmm.
anyone searching side hustle, looking to make extra money for fertility. I prefer extra side hustles like VIP Kid. You're teaching English to children in China, that you can sort of pick your own hours. They're, depending on your time zone, sometimes a little inconvenient, but I know people who have added that onto their job, because it's an actual service for an actual paycheck that you're in control of. This, when you see these, I don't want to call them schemes, when you see out there the people who are saying, pay me this money and I will help you to build your own business that you're only getting a tiny cut of and you have no say over,
Don't
the
do it.
va- don't the vast
Yeah.
vast vast majority of people do not make money in the way those businesses are set up. The most money they're making is on people setting themselves up in the business,
Hmm.
and I don't recommend that. So what is something that you already do that people ask you about, that they know you for, that they look to you for? My salsa is the best salsa in Georgia. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
Like east of the Mississippi,
Well, you
I'm
have a new
telling you.
customer. I'm ordering. I love salsa.
I'm telling you, if I'm in a pinch, that's what I'm gonna sell. Like everybody that I give it to, I gift it in
Hmm.
the mason jars at Christmas. They're like, "You need to sell this. When can I get more of this?" That's, the gift of being from Arizona is like bringing that out here. Is there something you already do that you enjoy? Is that extra perk? Are you already walking your dog? Why can't you walk the neighbor's dog who's elderly and having a hard time getting out right now? Or, what are the little things that you're already doing or that you're already good at that you could start charging for? Putting up a Facebook page takes, 10 seconds. sending out a list to your friends, letting them know that you're doing that now. Is anyone interested? Is 10, 20 minutes tops of replying to those. It's usually the mental aspect of doing it in the first place
Yeah.
that people have a hard time with. And the money blocks that come up are the manifesting part. You have the saving money, you have the making money, and then you have the manifesting. And manifesting to me just means to make real. It's not super woo. It's not religious. It doesn't matter if you say God, universe, spirit, doesn't your highest self. It doesn't matter what you call it. We come into life as a blank slate, and then we learn things about money on the way from our parents, usually, from other influences, from society, and from our own experiences. And that was one of the biggest challenges and presented early on with infertility, was that it was the first big financial hurdle my husband and I came across together. And it can be for a lot of couples because it can happen early on in your marriage. And so you realize how differently you deal with money, your strong thoughts and feelings about money, and what's worth spending money on and what's not. These aren't conversations you always have while you're dating, right? Like, do you agree with spending the money on IVF, or would you prefer to blah, you don't have those conversations. Yeah. So you have your own money stuff come up, you have their money stuff come up, and you have all of the sabotages, the money blocks. There are things to work through. And now is the perfect time to do that. It's I don't think that infertility is a gift, but you have to. There's nothing else you can do. You can choose not to, you can choose to walk away, you can choose to say this isn't for us, and that's okay. But the other choice is to deal with everything that's no longer working in your life. And that's what infertility did for me, was brought to light all of the things that were no longer serving me, that weren't working in my life, and that needed to change anyways. And doing that enabled us to not just save money for IVF, but afterwards, when we saw what we did, we're like, why not do it again and get out of debt? And so we paid off $50,000 in 18 months.
You had to be a team on that.
Yeah, we got on the same page. We had the money fights. We figured out how we communicate well and how we do not, what we both get excited about and what won't work for us. The hard line in the sand of what he's willing to do and what I'm willing to do and what we're not. He's not willing to sell his sports car ever. It's not worth it for me to fight about anymore.
Okay.
I make smart ass jokes,
so
and I let it go.
Figured out what's not. Yeah.
Right? Like you got to figure those things out. And then, we're moving into a new house we just built. And so we had saved up $100,000 this year for it. And we use the same steps every time. We use the same tools every time. It is the same process that you can use again and again. So I know that it's really hard when you're in the middle of it, and especially when it feels impossible. But I promise, if we did it, literally anyone could do it. And it's just a matter of how it's going to happen and finding the ways that work for you in a sustainable way, in a timeline that's realistic to make it happen. Whether that's IUI, IVF, organic everything, donor conception, using a surrogate, like all of those things will boil down to you making it happen and being willing to go all in. And
can you talk a little before we move on from that about maximizing insurance benefits, FSAs, HSAs? I know that's part of it too that you can look into. So
we missed the boat on that. We were young and dumb and had no idea what those things were or meant. So if you don't know what HSAs and FSAs are about, please, please, please get familiar with what your employer offers. They can be a huge benefit to you during tax time, and I would absolutely maximize those if you know that you're going to be doing treatment within the next year. There's different amounts and different ways to get reimbursed, but it's essentially saving you. I think on average, it's going to save you 30-ish% to go through and use those, which can be thousands of dollars at the end of the year. Their insurance benefits are intensely and extremely complicated. Even the people who work at the clinics don't know what the differences are sometimes. It's hard to give general advice on that, but I've done some interviews with experts at clinics and that insurance specialists, and the biggest tips and advice that they gave were to document everything.
Hmm.
So every time you're calling your insurance, be writing down who you're talking to, the date, the time, what you guys discussed, what you agreed on. You can ask for your own codes. So a lot of
Hmm.
times they'll just sort of like read to you off the screen, generally what it says, which is already what you read in front of your face. You can ask for more specific codes. You can ask to speak to a manager. You can,
Hmm.
you can go higher up the chain if you need to understand your benefits. This shouldn't have to be a mystery to you. You
Hmm.
should know what the requirements are, and you should know from the start. Ask more questions than you think you need to. So you might not even be at the point of IUI, but you're going to want to know that you have to do 3 of them before your insurance will pay for you to do IVF. That's going to
Hmm.
make a difference in your treatment decisions.
So what
Or
are some of those questions? Like what qualifies you for certain benefits, and really dig into the specifics? Are there any others?
yeah, the medications list, so they'll have usually different tiers, and you want to know what tier the medications fall under. You want to know if there's generic alternatives to what they're prescribing. You want to know if they're using something off label. So technically this is a cancer drug, but they're prescribing it for this. How is that
Hmm.
going to be covered? And if you already have underlying conditions that are documented, can some of this be prescribed to treat that? So, for
Okay.
instance, I have endometriosis. Some of the medications they were prescribing for IVF, they could also just prescribe to treat endometriosis. So, if it's prescribed for my endo, it's covered.
Hmm.
If it's
Got it.
prescribed for IVF, it's not.
It's so frustrating how confusing it is and how all of that works, but you have to force people to give you answers, right?
You
It's
do.
actually points to another question that actually I had, but also came in from someone just about advocating for yourself, for around fertility financing. So like we talk about advocating for yourself medically, or for example, with like what you're comfortable with your surrogacy agency or your relationship with your gestational carrier. But like, what are some of the tips for really advocating for yourself to help with your financial journey, aside from some of those insurance calls?
Yeah. Definitely asking more questions than you think you need to, writing everything down as you think of it. So, whether that's in your journal or on your phone throughout the day, keep an ongoing list for your doctor and for the financial professional that you're dealing with. Most people have it, in-house financing department, and the doctors love to ship you off to them because they don't want to have those
Hmm.
conversations, which
Okay.
I completely understand. It's not what
Hmm.
they signed up for. They're here for the medicine. However, if your doctor is like that, especially if they're the only doctor, but even if there's just a few doctors at this practice, what they say goes. So if your doctor tells the financing department, I want to give them half off of IVF, that's what's going to happen. So yes, your doctor doesn't want to have those conversations and it might make them feel uncomfortable, but that's how much are you willing to pay to avoid an uncomfortable conversation? If I tell you I will pay you $5,000 to have an uncomfortable conversation for 120 seconds, like would you do that? You probably would, right?
Yes. Yeah.
A stack of $5,000. Here's
Because I don't know
$5,000.
why I thought it was a trick question for a second.
No, it's not. It seems obvious,
Yeah.
right? That's the kind of money we're talking about. And that's why I hate when people focus on their $3 Starbucks
Yeah.
instead of, the $3 questions instead of the $3,000 questions. Asking your doctor, how can I reduce my costs? What if I get my medications overseas? What if I blah blah blah? One of my favorite tactics is to compare prices locally. So IVF clinics are very competitive with each
Hmm.
other, and especially locally in the same area. So it might cost you to go and do an initial consultation. Usually they'll put that fee towards your treatment, and
Hmm.
so people don't want to go and have another consultation because they're comfortable with their doctor and they don't want to pay $300 for a place that they might not use. But if that information helps you, you come back and say, well, so and so down the street is going to do it for $3,000 cheaper. Can you match that price? Then it cost you 300, it saved you 3,000. Like
Yeah, I don't think
that's
people
worth
think
it.
about this in that way. You think about that when you're like renting an apartment or something, but not,
They don't negotiate.
it's
They,
interesting. Yeah.
they don't. And women in general don't negotiate as often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stats on that. But when it comes to our medical treatment and the amount of stress you're under, there's parts of your brain that you use to analyze, and then there's emotional parts and reactive parts. It's proven that that part of your brain shuts down. It's why we forget to ask the questions we planned on asking. It's why we agree to things that we wouldn't have necessarily agreed to.
Yeah.
In that moment, you are not using the rational part of your brain. And this is
Agreed.
a huge expense. Huge. It might be one of your biggest life expenses. It is worth negotiating. Yes, you can negotiate. And no, not everybody is paying the same price. They want you to think that you come and that this is the price and that's the end of it. Unless their prices are crazy cheap and well advertised, not
Yeah.
people are paying different amounts. It's not the same for everybody.
It's almost like go in knowing and be prepared that you might go to that comfort zone of using the emotional versus the rational side of your brain, and prepare yourself not to bring the whole list that you've documented, everything you learned here.
Yeah.
And make sure to ask everything, right? Because
Yeah.
what are they going to say? Like if you say someone else does it for 3,000 less, or what, what about medication overseas? They can't just refuse to answer.
No,
So
they won't. And the worst they're going to say is no.
it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, that no, I can't help you. No, there's no way for you to save money. No, we don't have any medications that can be donated to you. That's another one to ask. A lot of offices have extra medication that, their patients come in to donate back that they didn't use. If they refuse to help you in any way, that's also something to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to have that conversation, if they make you feel bad for asking, that's another thing to think about, is what kind of doctor are you working with? So it shouldn't have to be that way. No one's going to ask the questions. No one's going to offer you the money. Like, you have to advocate for yourself. And I know it's an uncomfortable thing, but I believe that you become a parent the moment you start dreaming and hoping and wanting this baby. And the things that you are not willing to do for yourself, you become willing to do for your child and for your future family. And I promise you that once this baby is born, if they had a medical need that required you to come up with $5,000 in 1 month, you would find a way.
Mm-hmm.
That required you to go and talk to the doctor and have an uncomfortable conversation to get them the best medical care possible.
Absolutely.
You would absolutely do it. So those are the things that you start shifting into now. By the end of my fertility journey, I was a completely different patient than the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's like so perfectly kind of aligns with what you have on your website, I think, about the rookie, the soldier, and the veteran, which it may be fairly self-explanatory what those categories mean, but just related to that, I'd love if you could walk us through how you advise
the difference,
or what.
Yeah.
I mean, if people come to you at each different stage, like how that works.
So
especially given your journey yourself. And
I definitely walked through each of those. As a rookie, you go in usually wide-eyed and intimidated. They have all of these certificates on the wall, and you have no idea what they're even talking about or what it means. You're only absorbing half the information in each appointment. They send you to financing. You're like signing your life away. You didn't even plan on this. It's just a lot. You'll agree to anything because you're genuinely, I would say, uninformed. By the time you've been doing it a little while, you start to question things and you start to think, what about this? Well, who else is doing this? Well, you start having conversations about it and finding more information. And I would say that's when you're like soldiering on, right? You're in the trenches and you're informed, but you might not be taking every risk or, being willing to go all the way in because you're expecting it to work any day now. I get to avoid all the uncomfortable stuff. And hopefully that happens. And a lot of the time it does. But sometimes it's a lot longer than you think it's going to be, and it requires more than you imagined. And by the time you're a veteran, I think you have realized the importance of your future family, how much it means to you, that you have come up against so much and you kept going, right? It is excruciating. No, I know some people don't like the term warrior, fertility warrior, but every woman I know who's gone through fertility treatments is a freaking warrior. Like people, I don't know how they show up to work with a smile on their face and nodding at Mel in the lunchroom. Hi, Mel. How are you? Great. How are you today?
It's
fantastic.
Great.
Thanks, Mel. Like you know what you want to scream on the inside. You're crying in the in the bathroom on break. Like, it's so hard by the time you're a veteran, you can feel a little jaded. You can feel you start others think of you because your priorities have shifted. And
Hmm.
so in the beginning, I was doing whatever they said, however they said to do it. And at the end, I remember I had a positive test after IVF, and I didn't have a blood test till Monday, and it was on a Friday. And I knew that they would tell me that no to the blood test. So I went and sat in the office until they did it. And they're like, you
Okay.
don't have an appointment today. And I'm like, okay, I'll wait till
It's
you
okay.
have an
I'm here anyway.
opening. I'll just be here staring at you across the room. Let me know when you
Look how
can
cute
get
I
me in.
am.
I'm not leaving. And do I care if they go talk about me in
Can
the
manifest the
lunchroom?
blood test.
Yeah. Manifesting is, yeah, not all just sitting around meditating. It's
Yeah,
getting
you have
shit
to make
done,
it
right?
happen
You
yourself.
make
Yeah.
it happen. You have to
Hmm.
show up and refuse to leave. You have to let them go talk about you in the lunchroom because you don't care because they're not coming to, Thanksgiving dinner anyways. I don't care if you like
Yeah.
me. I care, about my medical care. And those are the shifts that happen and that you have to sort of embrace and that you can plan for and plan around. If you have a hard time with these conversations, well, and right now it's really extra hard with COVID, see if you can bring your significant other with you,
Hmm.
right? Or a friend or a family member. They're going to hear things that you didn't. They're going to ask questions that you aren't. And you can
Hmm.
even let them know this is uncomfortable. I'm going to have a hard time with this. Can you be the bad cop? I'll be the good cop. You know?
I've also recorded important appointments on my phone just to remember everything that was said too. So
That really will like put somebody on point. Be like, I'm recording this
it's hard to take
conversation
notes. I'm
and
like a note
set
taker,
it.
and it's hard when you're trying to pay attention too, you know?
Yeah, no, it's super smart. So you put things in place to help you advocate for yourself and just know that, like, love it or hate it, you're the only one.
Yeah.
You are not, you don't feel like you're an expert, but you're an expert in your medical care. You're an expert in your own medical history, in your
Hmm.
own finances. Nobody knows your life better than you. You have to be the one.
Yeah. Um, I, I have a question about, as you know, we were just talking about that journey, and what are some of the most commonly asked questions you get from, we'll start like with the rookie type of person who's just starting, so that other people know they're not alone if they're wondering about this question.
Yeah.
You know, what
Well,
what are you asked the most, and how do you kind of help?
it usually starts with, like, what the hell is a fertility finance coach? Like, what does that
Okay.
mean? What are you doing? What are you talking about? And once I explain a little bit more, then it's oftentimes, oh, well, this is what's going on with us. We have this immediate expense. We have these goals that we're saving for. We don't feel like it's possible at all. In the beginning stages, it just feels overwhelming. So I would say for a rookie, we're oftentimes dealing with the overwhelm, the baby steps, and the education.
Hmm.
There's just so much. You don't know what you don't know. And there's only
Exactly.
one way to learn it. Like, none of us are born knowing any of this. It was not something we ever hoped to learn. They're not teaching us in sex ed class what this is. So we
Yeah,
have
far
to
from it.
learn the hard way, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that would be the early stages are mostly not knowing.
Like getting out of that fog of being overwhelmed, and making a plan, right? And I think it's also, sort of a good segue because, as we talked about before too, infertility is already so stressful and confusing experience at first as it is. I'd love to hear what you think about sort of the side benefit of creating the savings plan, sticking to the budget, and how that not only has the financial benefits, but also kind of has some other crucial benefits of relieving some of the stress and worry
Yeah.
involved. I think, like we said, you told me that everyone comes to you at an 8 out of 10 on the stress
Mm-hmm.
level. And that's
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their financial situation in life.
Yeah.
Everyone's like very high stress level about the financing. And
Yeah.
so, like, I just love to hear your perspective on that, and also like a realistic goal after setting up the plan, what you can bring that down, like cut it in half
Yeah.
before, or
Yeah. So I would say that it doesn't really matter where you're from, if you have insurance or not. It doesn't matter if you have the money already in your savings account or if you're starting from scratch. I have had people all over the world, all walks of life, all different situations, and the money during fertility treatments, that money becomes such a stress and such a focus in their life that their stress levels, when I have them rate it themselves, on average 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's huge, but it's also realistic. You know, most people aren't coming and being like, it's an 11. They're not
Mm-hmm.
being dramatic. They're saying, compared to
It really
everything in
is.
my life,
Mm-hmm.
it literally is about an 8 out of 10. It's pretty intense. And I was not expecting that when I first started this work. I thought I
Mm-hmm.
would only have people who had no money, who didn't know where to start, and we would work from that place. And that hasn't been the case. So finding what money means to them,
Mm-hmm.
what it's symbolizing for them, can be really key. So what comes up, I want to say probably almost half the time, is that we are so out of control during that time in our lives. And especially if you are a type A person who is used to having things done the way you say because you are getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
To have something this big, this important, completely out of your control, that you have no say so in,
Mm-hmm.
is it's disarming, and it triggers us in a very primal way. It's a survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can show up in our money because we can control it, because it feels tangible, it's measurable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an easy thing to focus on because can I deal with the grief of my miscarriage right now? I can't deal with that today. Can I deal with the fact that my husband just biggie sized his soda on his, lunch break drive through, and I can scream at him that he doesn't care about us or this family, or else he would be trying to save more money to make this baby happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how it came out. Is it
Mm-hmm.
about the large Sprite? No, it's not. Right? That's not what it's about.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Maybe
But
just a
not
smidge. That is obnoxious, but
no, of
like,
course not.
that's not what it's
Yeah.
about. So finding what it is about for people, which oftentimes boils down to control, and it boils down to hope,
Mm-hmm.
because this money becomes very symbolic, right? This
Right.
is the gamble. This is the ultimate gamble. I'm taking everything I've ever worked for and I am gambling it on a chance at motherhood. That is hard to stomach. For people who are not natural gamblers, depending on your money personality, it is really hard to stomach. And so that's what I've found is helpful, is figuring out what the money is symbolizing for people and then addressing it and
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling that need in other ways. So if control is an issue for you, I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't be that way. I'm not going to tell you to work on your personality and not be a controlling person. That's obnoxious, and I don't think that you should do that. I don't believe in people who say that, like, that's good advice. You have to feed it in other ways. So yes, you want some control. Yes, money is an easy thing to focus on. Let's make it a fun, positive focus. Let's put up a visual savings tool on your fridge and have you mark every day where you're at and watch it rise, so that you can reassure yourself that you're being responsible, that you're saving money for something important,
Mm-hmm.
that you're doing things to be successful every day. You have to put a plan in place to give yourself the reinforcement you need without it teetering too
Yeah.
far into something that's going to sabotage you.
I think the visual representation is just so motivational, but it's fun too. I mean, sales teams at prior companies I've worked at would have their board, like their whiteboard, the entire wall would have all their goals and who hit what, and like ring a bell or a
Yes.
gong when a sale went
Get
through.
your
And
own
it's
gong. Like, how
it's
fun would
literally
that be?
like, if it's right in front of your face, it's even more rewarding and it helps you think about it a lot, but without it being like
Totally.
stressful to think about as much, I think.
Totally. Visual
Yeah.
savings tools are one of my top tips, and that's what everybody that I work with has one of those. They are so effective on a lot of levels, and manifesting, I do believe, as well, but also keeping your momentum up and reminding yourself, rewiring your brain that this is not sacrifice. This isn't you going without. This is actually a win. This is actually something that
Yeah.
helps you feel good, better than the shopping trip to TJ Maxx you just skipped. Right? You get to go home and put $40 on your on your board instead. And it was so funny. One of the unexpected parts was that when I started doing it, that my husband started getting in on it. And then I would ask him, "Do you want to color this in? We just saved this much." And then I would come home and it would
You can
already
use the
be on
blue.
there. Yeah. That does drive me
You
nuts.
can
I hate when
choose.
we have different colored markers on there. I'm like, can it be one color?
That's great.
But he does it on his own now. He likes it. It makes you feel good. It reminds you of your priorities and it gets you on the same page. So for couples, it can be really important to have those pieces in place as well, so that
Yeah.
you're both coming back to the same one goal at a time.
Yeah. And just speaking of like building up that like hope and I guess inspiration towards your not sacrificing, but creating something, right? I found a quote on your site that I loved. You are stronger than you know. Sorry, I'm reading it. You are braver than you think, and you are going to be okay.
Mm.
I love that. And on that note, I was just wondering if you had any final words of wisdom, advice, or inspiration for our
Yeah.
listeners now or those who watch this after.
I really want people to know, one, that it's possible. No matter what your financial situation is, it is possible for you if you decide it. Money will not be what decides if you become a mother or father or not.
Mm-hmm.
It will not be money. It will be your decision. And
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know that it won't always be this hard. I think when you get into it after a while, it just seems never ending.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been so hard for so long. And I want to tell you, no matter what, no matter how long it takes, no matter what happens, no matter what your path to parenthood is, it will not be as hard as it is right now. And that when you get to the other side, you will have become the best version of yourself. You will have let go of all the things that aren't working for you. You will have put things in place that will benefit you and your future family for the rest of your life. This isn't in vain. You are stronger than you know. You will
Mm-hmm.
keep going. You're so brave to get up every day and to keep doing this. And it is going to be okay. I promise. I can tell you from the other side, and having watched so many couples going through this, I promise it's going to be okay.
Thank you. That's incredible. And thank you also for just opening up this conversation so much more. I think so many people are uncomfortable talking about money or talking about their specific money circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And going through infertility can not only, just is so difficult in itself, but it can force you to have these uncomfortable conversations related to money. And why not just get past that discomfort and be open about it? And that's the first starting point, right? To coming up with your plan. So I think
Yeah.
like you're an inspiration for just being so open about your own
Oh,
experience and
thank you.
lots of different ways, like so many creative ways on your site and what you just talked about. So,
Yeah.
um, so just a quick final note before we wrap up. Just what are you excited about personally and professionally coming up? What should we look out for? I know you have a new house, but what
Yeah.
should we look out for?
God, I cannot wait to get into our new house. I'm so sick of apartment living. That is what I'm most excited about. I think that professionally, what repackaging the way I've delivered the materials to people, I'm really excited about. So breaking it down into more specific categories where people can say, I really want to know how to maximize my tax savings. I'm really having trouble with these difficult money conversations in my marriage. Having just little mini courses and mini packages for them to buy as they need when they need it. I'm really excited
Mm-hmm.
about sort of revising some of the things I do with clients and giving them to people at a much lower price point. That's just when
Good.
they need it.
That's great. Let
Yeah.
us know when it's launching and we'll help tell people about it.
Okay. Yes. Maybe I'll come back. It
Thanks.
was so fun to talk to you today.
Thank you again so much. This was so informative. If anyone has questions you didn't get to ask, feel free to DM us or Devon,
Yeah.
obviously, and check out her Fertility Money Club and her website. And
Yes.
if you have any other topics you want us to cover in these lives, let me know anytime in the DMs or the comments. And thank you again.
Thank
And
you for
hope everyone
having
has
me.
a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you
Bye,
soon, hopefully.
guys.
Bye.